Local productions seen on Delta College Public Media are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mike Redford, and this is the follow-up. Coming up on tonight's show, if you travel in and around Bay City, heads up. Two of the city's bridges are becoming toll bridges, with the first tolls to be taken sometime in May, but not for everyone. Well, at least not at first. We'll get to that. It's a monumental change for commuters, a new way for cities with tight budgets to find new options to generate revenue. It's also a move others around the country are looking at to pay for infrastructure by privatizing. A lot to unpack here, that's for sure. But first, we would like to hear from you to help guide the conversation here on the show. You can do that in a variety of ways via social media on Facebook and Twitter. You can email us, or you can dial into our follow-up hotline to voice your opinion or suggest future show topics. And if you'd like to watch any of our past shows this season, just log on to deltapublicmedia.org. Well, our guest today in the studio, Dana Muscott, the Bay City City Manager, and Lynn Pavlawk, the General Manager of the Bay City Bridges, right? Bridge Partners, there we go. See, you're clearing it up already. All right, gals, this is a big deal. That's a news flash. There hasn't been a toll bridge in Bay City since 1886, kind of a trivia question here, and only two other toll bridges in Michigan that don't end up in Canada. And one, two, three, the Mackinac Bridge and a smaller bridge to Grosse Ile downriver in the Detroit River. So let's do the Wayback Machine, 2019. How did we get here? With the city ultimately deciding to lease both the Liberty and Independence bridges to United Bridge Partners and turn them into toll bridges. So Dana's the city manager at that time and currently. Had to be one of the toughest conversations and discussions you probably ever had.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really tough for myself and for our city commissioners because this was going to be ultimately a lifetime decision to change something in our community. Adding toll bridges, we didn't start out that way, and we were looking for help from other agencies, and we decided to put it out for bid. So, I mean, I can go back to, how we got there, if that's what you'd like me to do.
A little bit,
So, the bridges were older. They reached their lifespan, and they needed a lot of repair work. And we started to meet with people in Lansing. We actually went down there, the mayor and some city commissioners and myself went down to ask for help, additional funding to help with our repairs. And the state was not ready to do that.
Sure.
They had their own infrastructure issues, their streets. It was brought up in our meeting a few times about how they had to deal with that. But we carried it on back to our community, and we did a ton of public meetings. We met with legislatures. We had public hearings at the DoubleTree. We had so many meetings at City Commission chambers. So this decision wasn't made in a vacuum. It literally wasn't behind closed doors. I know people are saying that we made this decision without the public's knowledge. It's absolutely the farthest from the truth. Lots of public hearings, lots of different options on the table, and then we decided to put it out for bid, and we had 3 people that bid on that public-private partnership concept that we were looking for.
Sure, a lot of work. So
Yes.
Lynn, you are the general manager of the Bay City Bridge Partners, subsidiary of United Bridge Partners, based in Denver. So this is kind of in your wheelhouse, right? Your company, you're on the front lines of privatizing bridges. So you've been down this road before, right?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Bay City Bridge, United Bridge Partners. The 2 Bay City bridges are 2 of 6. So we have 6 assets. We have our South Norfolk Jordan Bridge, which is in Chesapeake, Virginia. We have a bridge in Indiana, our Klein Avenue Bridge in Indiana. And then our Hobolt Road Extension Bridge that will be launching here next month, and that's in Joliet, Illinois. And then the Liberty Bridge, which we opened in December, and tolling will be going live in May here in Bay City. And then we have Parkersburg, which is in West Virginia, which will be launching in August. And then Independence Bridge will be complete with that rehabilitation project at the end of 2024. Okay. So the 2 Bay City assets are 2 of the 6 assets that we own and operate.
So we'll get into the tolling and the transponders here in a moment. A couple other things. For clarity, the city has 2 other bridges, Veterans in Lafayette, still under state control, MDOT, right?
That's
Yes.
correct.
How are they working? Are they being maintained fine?
They are being maintained.
Okay.
Lafayette Bridge, though, is going to be under construction coming up. We believe in 2024 is when they're going to start doing some work. So we are going to have their state bridges going on. Hopefully not at the same time, because it's tough for Bay City folks to get around. It's
Sure.
a little bit different. The bridges start to get a little congested, the other two. So there will be construction on that one. And Vets Bridge is in good shape as far as we know.
And I'll throw this out because you get this a few times with declining population.
Yeah.
Does Bay City really still need 4 bridges? How would you guys sort of answer that?
I guess from my perspective, Bay City Bridge Partners is investing over $160 million in the Liberty and Independence Bridge projects, and I look at that as like foundational infrastructure investment in the community to help us continue to grow and prosper, to bring in more businesses, to bring in and retain the people that are currently here, to be able to grow and offer more jobs, and for the population to not decline, but obviously to have just the opposite effect.
See, that's a good point in development for
Yeah.
the future. It's just not maintaining bridges to get from point A to point B. I mean, you're talking about continuing to revitalize the region, and these bridges are really critical for that,
They
right?
are very critical.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
critical to move people around in our city, but it's also critical for economic development, which, infrastructure is something that people do look at when they come in, maybe to invest in our community, a business coming in, or even somebody moving into our community. And it's important to have good city assets, and infrastructure is a huge portion for that.
And the other point that needs to be made, these are bascule bridges,
That's
okay? And for those who don't understand that, why don't you explain that? And because that's a factor in this, because they're a lot more expensive to maintain than the stationary bridges, right?
Yes, bascule bridges are 10 to 15
Right.
times more expensive to operate and maintain than a stationary bridge. So when I talk about bascule bridges, it's essentially the portion that opens and closes. So the Saginaw River, there is a lot of freight and shipping activity that happens on that. So that is one of the benefits, again, to the Bay County or Bay City region, is the fact that we have those businesses right there along the river and have the ability to bring in freight in that area. So, but bascule bridges, you not only have the road surface that you have to maintain and upkeep, but you have all the electrical and mechanical components inside as well. And obviously, as technology continues to evolve over time, you can imagine how expensive it is to upgrade those to the latest and greatest in bridge technology.
So I said this at the beginning when I introed the show. There are other cities, I think, around the country that are looking at what you're doing. The decision you guys made at the city level to privatize, go to tolls. I'd be interested to hear have you gotten calls from others?
Oh, yes.
What are your concerns going into this in terms of, okay, what would you tell other city managers that say, hey, this may be something we need to consider?
Yeah, I mean, I think at last count, I think there's 25 bascule bridges in the state of Michigan.
There
Have you
is,
looked that
yes.
up? 25. And 12 of them are only locally owned. So when I do go to conferences with my other managers, they are like asking us, we're watching you. They're saying, we're watching to see how you do this in your community, because it's also strain on their budget. We only have so much money out of our operating budget for the bridges, and we couldn't spend it on the roads because we were putting it into our bridges. So it's the same thing for their community. So yeah, they literally are watching us. They've asked how we've done it. I do know some people have asked for presentations on how we got from A to B, because it is a tough sell for the community.
Sure.
Until you really put it in black and white, like, this is how much money we have, this is how much money it takes to fix it or replace it, and we can't make those ends meet.
Right.
So it's going to be tough on other cities as they go forward, because they just keep getting older and older.
Right, and Lynn, you've got, like you said, at least one asset, one bridge elsewhere that's been in operation like this for like 10 years, right? So it's going fine.
Yes.
I'm sure there was
Yeah.
pushback there as well. Not that you were with that company then, but I'm assuming you get the same kind of pushback, right?
Yes, our SNJB is what we call our South Norfolk Jordan Bridge, and that has been in operation over 10 years. So yeah, I mean, change is hard, and we try to understand that as we here locally continue to work with and educate the community. But again, I think when you look at the big picture, I always commend Dana and the city commissioners and our city mayor and the fact that they are visionaries and that they're innovators, you know, they've really had to think outside of the box to find a solution to continue to allow Bay City to grow and prosper. And like she said, you know, by bringing in a private company to take over those assets, it allows them to spend that money elsewhere that's in their budget, such as road projects and things of that nature. So yeah, I think going forward, we'll continue to have conversations with other communities, whether they're within the state of Michigan or outside the state as well.
So leading up to this big day, sometime in May, when you're actually going to do the tolls, there's a lot needs to be done, and we're going to unpack that. So what kind of criticisms or complaints have you kind of gotten as you move toward this day? A lot of social media stuff, probably the same people. What are you hearing, and how do you vet some of those complaints?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I could tell on my side, we get, you didn't take care of the bridge. What did you do all these years? You didn't
Right.
maintain it. Without them knowing the real figures on what it costs to maintain. What we would get in an Act 51 dollars from the state of Michigan didn't even cover the maintenance on those bridges, and we should be using those on the roads. So we get that criticism of, it's another asset we're just throwing away, when they don't realize this asset's going to be wonderful when it's done. So we get those type of criticisms. I'm sure you get different ones, and you probably hear about the city to you as well, I'm sure.
You know, from our perspective, I think a lot of it is misinformation that's being shared on social media. One of the things was the cost of a transponder. You know, I cannot stress or say enough times that transponders are free. You do not pay for the transponder itself. There was some miscommunication that there was a $15 monthly fee. I've heard and seen other numbers that they were talking about, that there's a monthly fee on top of the toll rates to actually cross the bridge, and that is just inaccurate. So a lot of what myself and my staff does is we really just try to educate people and to share the correct information. So there is a monthly subscription rate that those that are not city residents can take advantage of. And again, that was one of the things that Dana and the city commissioners had included in our lease, was city residents are free for 5 years. And but they also looked at, what about Bay County residents or other residents or commuters that utilize those bridges but don't live within the city limits. So
yeah, we've got a graphic right here, so you can kind of walk us through that if you see that behind you there. So tell me again how that's working there.
Yeah, so Bay City residents are free for 5 years, so they're free until 2028 in their Class 1 passenger vehicle. Now, if they're in a Class 2 or Class 3 vehicle, there are fees associated with that. If you are not a Bay City resident and you are a commuter who utilize either Liberty or Independence Bridge, Independence Bridge tolling will not start until that rehabilitation project is complete. You can either pay per crossing, which it's $2 for a Class 1 vehicle, or you can subscribe to a monthly subscription rate. So think of it as, a lot of streaming television has monthly rates that you pay a one-time fee, and then you can watch as many programs as you choose to during that time frame. So this is very similar to that. You would sign up for the monthly subscription instead of pay as you go. And commercial accounts or businesses, they are not eligible for the resident discount or the monthly subscription rate. That is only for non-commercial vehicles. So they have Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3. Their vehicle rates are shown on your screen as well. And again, I encourage everybody to get a transponder, because that will ensure you pay the lowest rate. If you don't have a transponder in your car, then you will be charged the pay-by-plate rate, which those are on the screen as well. And the delta is $3.50. So if you may, we had an incident back in December last year where Liberty Bridge wasn't open to traffic yet. Independence Bridge, I think must have been closed.
I think it was.
And there was an issue on Vets Bridge. So essentially, I think there was an issue. So long story short, there was a lot of congestion. And incidents like that where you may not plan to use one of the toll bridges, but you may have to because there's issues on the non-tolled bridges. So I just encourage people to create your account. You can go to baycitybridgepartners.com. There's a gold button. It says Get Your BC Pass. and you can create your account. You get your transponder in the mail. You can come into our customer service center. We opened our customer service center at the end of February. We're located at 300 Center Avenue, so right on the corner of Center and Washington, Suite 101. So you can walk in there, make sure you bring a valid photo ID and your valid vehicle registrations for each vehicle that you want to get a BC Pass for. But you can come in and do it face-to-face in person, or you can use our self-service website by going to the link on our webpage, get your BC Pass now. And just one thing, if you don't mind, if I can elaborate.
This is your show, guys. This is what this is all about.
I have something to add, too.
A lot of people have pre-registered. We've had over 18,000 pre-registrations happen and like 30,000 vehicles, which is phenomenal. Again, that goes against all the negative things that people may see on social media. There is a lot of people who are signing up to use these toll bridges. If you pre-register, that is different from creating your account. The pre-registration list was for us to have the ability to tell you when the customer service center was open, when the self-service website was up and operational. So you still need to create your account. And again, you can do that either by coming and seeing us in our customer service center or by going online to baycitybridgepartners.com and doing it that way.
Can you go back to about the Bay City residents, because I think people need to understand Bay City residents mean within our boundaries of Bay City, because a lot of people in Bay County have the Bay City address. And so we're hearing that too. They don't understand that they don't live in the city limits. And so I think that's important to share too.
Yes, so we have a map on our website if you aren't sure if you live within the city limits, but that city resident discount is for the individuals that live within the city limits of Bay City. If your address still may say Bay City, but you live in a township, like Merritt Township, Monitor Township, Franklin Township, Bangor Township, you do not live within the city limits. So just need to make sure that you look at the map on our website and you can determine if you are within or with. I think that question, that was a big question we spent a lot of time on last fall and maybe even early this year. But I think a lot of people now are grasping that the postal codes are different than your actual city limits within Bay City.
So back to the registration, because some have said it's like anything. It takes a little time for the process to kind of work itself out. I think there was an issue at one time, I don't think it is anymore, where you would go online, you register, and then I think you'd get an email, and maybe people were confused that I'm registered, but you had to wait for an email. So tell me about that and how that has sort of been resolved, right?
Yeah, I think, in today's day and age, people are used to, I go on Amazon and order something and it may show up at my door later that day or the following day. So, they're used to filling out something and getting something very quickly in return. And that's not, in our case, when it came to pre-registration. Again, we were really focused on getting the bridge back open to traffic prior to the Christmas holiday, so that way everybody had another route in terms of ways to get to their family and friends over the holiday season. But more importantly, we wanted to make sure it was open to traffic before the Lafayette Bridge closed. If you recall, that was closed in the month of January and February. We were not completely done with all of the construction elements, but the road surface was complete, so we could open it back up to traffic. And we didn't want the community to be concerned or anxious. The bridge is open to traffic. I don't have a transponder. I haven't done anything yet. Am I going to have to pay tolls? So that's why we started the pre-registration list. Is we wanted people to, we communicated to them that tolling was not starting yet. But if you go on and pre-register, you're providing us with your name, address, email, and then we will reach out to you when it's time to create your account. So I think there was just some confusion because there was a little bit of a delay in terms of when they pre-registered and when the walk-in center opened. As a lot of people can relate to, when you're in construction, we think our day to open the doors is going to be X, and obviously it was later than what we had anticipated. And then the same with our self-service website. That took a little bit longer to get that up and fully operational. We have high quality standards that we hold ourselves accountable to. And last thing we wanted to do was launch a website and have there be some issues, and then that just create more confusion.
Sure.
So that took a little bit longer. And those things combined, as well as just the sheer volume of people who have pre-registered, is what led us to delay the start of tolling. You know, we had anticipated starting on April 2nd, but we said, wait a minute, you know, we are not going, you know, we feel that we own those delays, and we are not going to punish the community in terms of starting to toll when we haven't been able to fulfill those transponder requests. So we're giving them additional time to, you know, to go on and create their accounts and get the transponders.
So what will determine that day? When you're going to wake up one morning and say, well, we've got enough people registered and the bridges are ready, so let's get at what'll determine
So
that?
we'll be monitoring those 18,000 pre-registrations. We'll be communicating to them on a regular basis if we don't see that they have taken action and gotten their account.
Sure.
So we'll be trying, you know, we'll be reaching out to them via email, potentially even phone calls. We send things out in the mail to remind people to create your account. So we'll make sure that we do our due diligence and reach out to those individuals multiple times. If they choose not to take action, you know, we can't change that, but we'll make sure that we've done everything in our power to inform them that tolling is going to be started and they need to take action and get their transponders.
And I know the city's promoting it too. You guys are working as a team. I just saw a billboard on the highway, so you're really out there, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, it's good to be supportive of each other too, because they are part of the community, and they did help us, right? I mean, they came through with their promise on taking care of these bridges, because there was just no way that the city could do that with the amount of dollars that were needed to repair and even replace.
Right.
Is just way out of our purview.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we
go ahead. Go ahead.
we collaborate with
Sure.
you know, with Dana and her staff at the city, with the, you know, streets and fleet staff. You know, we collaborate with them. We collaborate with MDOT. So when we talk about the Lafayette Bridge, their project starting next year, you know, we are in constant conversation with one another just to try to make sure that we're making the best decisions on behalf of the local community.
Right, and you're still, no matter how many times you tell people, and this is essentially why we're doing this show.
Yeah.
I wanted to inform and educate people, and those that are watching in Bay City and elsewhere, because it's not just Bay City, to get registered. And there's no excuse not to, and at the end of the day, you're still going to have a lot of people that are going to go, what, I didn't do it, but eventually they all have to do it.
I think it's good to note, though, too, like when you talk about collaboration, that our employees are still working on the bridges as well to do the maintenance. So they're still employed that way through UBP. In a sense.
Yes.
So.
We hire, essentially, you know, we look for resources to be able to do some of the maintenance work for us, and we've talked with the city, and we continue to utilize, and we pay for that.
Yes.
None of the city resident taxpayer dollars go into that. That is something that Bay City Bridge Partners pays that bill, but we still utilize them. They have years of experience.
Yeah.
Sure.
They
It's all the
have a lot of
experience
that
they have.
experience, so we continue to utilize them for that support.
That's good
as
to
well.
point out. They're getting paychecks, and it's local workers
That's right.
doing local work.
And they stayed in their jobs because they were in these jobs prior to all of this, so they continue to be employed.
And that you just reminded me of something. The Liberty Bridge was built by local unions. Like there were, and I don't have my cheat sheet, maybe Dana does.
No, I don't.
There was, I like to say it's locally built, union proud, union strong, you know, and I encourage people. I can imagine that most everybody knows a friend of a friend, a niece or a nephew or a parent or a grandparent, somebody in the local community has ties to all of those local unions, our local electrical union, carpenters union, millwright union, painters union, operators union. I know there's others, and I apologize, I didn't hit them all.
That's plenty.
It
Yeah.
is. And they're proud to be doing this project in their hometown,
Yes.
which is amazing.
And that goes back to, you know, we talked about infrastructure and investment, but you think of all of that, you know, that money stays locally. Those people now are eating in our restaurants and are, you know, using our dry cleaners, are shopping at the local stores, you know, so I just think, again, change is hard, and this is something new. I think you'll see, as you had mentioned earlier, I think you'll see more evolution towards whether it's toll bridges or toll roads. I know the state did a study themselves and released those findings earlier this year.
Sure.
But Bay City's the first, one of the first here in the state of Michigan that has done that. That is something to be very proud of.
And Dana, it speaks to that economic development issue we talked about. Again, it's not just getting from point A to point D, but if those bridges closed, if you just sort of ran out of options, I mean, that does not send a good message. And from a commuting standpoint, that's one. But economic development, I'm guessing businesses will go, well, why are we setting up shop? I can't get my people around, right?
If we make it hard for them to get to work, or have customers get to they're going to move elsewhere, and we don't want that, right?
Sure.
So we need to move them from point A to point B.
There you go. Okay, I'm going to ask a question in terms of other vehicles. Do they have to pay? Police, do they have to pay?
No, the police, sheriff's department, the local Bay City public safety department, your local police departments are exempt from tolling.
Okay, the garbage haulers, DPW?
So all of the city vehicles are exempt from tolling as well.
Okay, school buses?
So the Bay City Public School District, their transportation fleet, their Department of Transportation, their school buses are free as well.
Okay.
Or exempt from tolling.
You mentioned city vehicles, they're exempt, and then, well, we had garbage trucks on here. So it's interesting. And then tourists, I mean, if we're traveling from downstate or whatever, they're going to have to pay. It'll take a picture of your license plate, right? And you'll get something in the mail, right?
Yeah. So I encourage people, if you know you've got relatives or friends coming into town for different events throughout the summer, the city does a great job putting on a lot of concerts, and I know there's going to be fishing tournaments and the 4th of July fireworks. Yeah, so there's always something going on every weekend, or most weekdays even in the city. If you know you've got relatives, have them go online and sign up, create their account, and get their transponder. If not, if they arrive and haven't done that, they can come to our walk-in center and get one before they leave, so that they don't pay the pay-by-plate rate. But if they don't get a transponder, then yes, we will send them an invoice in the mail at the pay-by-plate.
And that was interesting. Before we came to the decision of tolling, people from all over the state and the Midwest, for that matter, were using those bridges, and you guys were kind of paying the freight on it, right?
Were,
People forget that.
They forget that. It was the city taxpayers that were paying for, the infrastructure. So yeah, they do. I mean, we have people that travel from the Thumb to get to I-75, and so they weren't from our community, right? So it's a very good point.
Time to pay the freight on that. Well, good luck. It's going to be tolling pretty soon. I hope we educated and informed a lot more people. You guys did a great job, and great job making that decision. You and the city, Dana, great job on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's our show for tonight, but be sure to join us again next week for the follow-up. With inflation at a 40-year high, social service agencies are scrambling to help those in need. The head of the Saginaw County United Way and 2 people who run nonprofits will join us on the show to see how they are helping families make ends meet. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll see you next week. Have a great night, everyone.